We are back for another episode of Tag Talk. My name is Megan and I work for the marketing team at PC NameTag. And today I'm here with Meegan Winters. She is the co-founder and CEO of AbleVu. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So we are going to talk about some really cool things today. Primarily, we're going to talk about some really easy, low-cost accommodations that you can implement as an event professional. So I'm really excited to hear what Meegan has to share with us today. But first, let's learn a little bit more about you, Meegan. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, like you mentioned, my name is Meegan Winters. I am the CEO and co-founder of AbleVu, and we have another company, Able Eyes. Both of the companies were inspired by my background as a special education teacher working with students on the autism spectrum. And then I also had a best friend, Jessica, who was a power wheelchair user. She had muscular dystrophy. We lived together in college. So I learned a lot about physical accessibility through my experiences with Jessica, and invisible disabilities through my experiences as an educator. When Jessica unfortunately passed away in 2015 as a result of her muscular dystrophy, and that event is what really led me down this path of really wanting to make a difference in the world as far as accessibility. So here I am, and the two companies are Able Eyes is a virtual tour photography company. We provide virtual tours of public spaces so people can see and get acclimated with spaces ahead of time. And then AbleVu is kind of like a TripAdvisor of accessibility information. So it's a platform where businesses can sign up and create an accommodation platform where we're not rating anybody's accessibility or compliance, just information to help people feel more comfortable.
You've taught me a little bit more about how event professionals specifically can utilize AbleVu and Able Eyes. Could you tell me a little bit more about how you specifically worked with CVBs, DMOs, and other event professionals to help accomplish their accessibility goals?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have worked with a lot of CVBs. We have a program called AbleVu Accessible Cities. That is a city that has a minimum of 5 hotels, 5 restaurants, and 5 attractions that have AbleVu profiles. So it's a city that those professionals then know at least have minimum information about accessibility. So if an employee from a certain organization or a speaker from a certain organization that needs some sort of accommodations, it's easier to find places that have those accommodations if you have information about those spaces.
Great. And it looks like you can, look into hotels, airports, restaurants, different travel destinations. So I can see how that could be super helpful to event professionals, especially if you're trying to pick the city that you want to have your conference or event in, or just trying to make your event experience more accessible.
Absolutely. And there are some CVBs in cities that are doing amazing things. I would say in the past 3, maybe 4 years, this has become a really hot topic amongst the CVBs. Obviously, they want to attract visitors to their city. That's their job. And with 25% of the population having some form of disability, it is critical that they are taking that into account when they're marketing to people. So, and whether that's a loved one. So if, let's say, a couple, elderly husband and wife, and the wife had a stroke and has limited mobility, and the husband is her caregiver, and they want to travel someplace, they need a lot of information before going there. And so it really is critical to have that information to attract visitors to those places. And that goes for vacations and events like we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. I've been learning a lot this year about accessibility, and I've heard that if one thing is good for one person, it can be good for everybody. So it's really important to think about those accessibility needs that some people have and implementing them into your event experience. So that leads me to my next question for you, Meegan. Could you tell me how AbleVu accessible cities, in your opinion, can help improve attendee satisfaction or visitor satisfaction for your event?
Absolutely. I think that anybody would agree that one of the primary reasons for anxiety is the unknown. So when we don't know something, we create a story in our head about something. We start getting anxious about it. We start thinking, what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? Well, if you have that information, whether it's a virtual tour so you can physically see the space, or it's an AbleVu profile where you can find out if they have curbside pickup or if they have an accessible entrance or what their restrooms look like, or if there's a quieter space for somebody that might have sensory sensitivities. Like all of that information decreases anxiety a little bit. And so it makes it easier for those individuals to visit those places.
That's great. I would love to learn a little bit more about you, from you. What are some like low cost, easy to implement accommodations that I, as an event professional, could implement at my conference to help attendees feel more confident and comfortable while they're attending?
Absolutely. I think probably one of the biggest things that I see at events is obviously at most events, you're trying to maximize the use of space. And so a bunch of tables are crammed into a room and there's very little space in between tables. If somebody if say was a wheelchair or a scooter user, they're probably stuck in the very back of the room. So even creating one aisleway that would be wide enough for a person to choose a different table than the very back table would be super meaningful. Another accommodation that I see missing sometimes is networking events. So if you think about like a networking hour after a conference or cocktail hour, and typically those cocktail tables are high top cocktail tables. And so for somebody, again, that's a scooter or wheelchair user, one, to network in that space is really difficult because they would be sitting down here looking up at people. And also there's no place to set their drink or their food. And so having some low top table options where someone, like maybe that person can sit at a low top table and other people can join them would be, again, a really super simple accommodation. And one more that I will just say is like just paying attention to the food, like the self-serve food. Is it something that someone can reach, or is it something that someone would need help with? And if they need help with it, that's okay. But just have a person available to help somebody that might need that type of service. What's frustrating is when somebody gets to the line and they can't reach the plate. And then they can't make it through the line and they can't get the food and they don't know who to ask and they're embarrassed to ask their colleagues. So just having a person that's kind of aware and training the staff as to how they can best serve somebody that has a different ability.
Great. It sounds like, a lot of these things might be things that you might already be doing, but if you kind of just shift your focus a little bit, you can make it a lot more accessible for all of your attendees. So that's great.
Yeah.
My last question that I had for you is something that I really like about your past experiences. You come from a special education background, which I think is really cool. And I like that kind of informs how you do your position at AbleVu. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about some ways that I, as an event professional, could make my conferences more inclusive and welcoming to people on the autism spectrum, since that is something that you've had a lot of experience with in the past.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's probably even more underserved than the physical accessibility. So in that statistic, that 25% of the population has some form of disability, 25% are invisible disabilities. And when you think about the ADA, or Americans with Disabilities Act, there are no accommodations that are required for someone that has an invisible disability. So oftentimes they're not served. And the result is that those people stay home or they're really highly uncomfortable in a place. So I would say the top thing you could do for somebody that has a sensory sensitivity is just be aware of like the noise and the lighting and things like that. But more important than that would be preparing. So that's the whole purpose behind like the virtual tours or AbleVu, the preparing ahead of time. So sending pictures of what the room looks like, sending pictures of what the restroom looks like, sending pictures of what the networking area would look like. Make sure that there's a really strict schedule, like a timeline of like what to expect when. So that was something I used to do in the classroom, is we had visual schedules. They were very detailed. They probably don't need to be that detailed for an event, but it was like backpack, bathroom, snack, circle time. Like there was a visual schedule. Just knowing what to expect and when things were coming is really critical for somebody that is on the spectrum.
Great. I know it may seem like a lot of work for someone, but it's totally worth it because, that could help anybody.
Absolutely.
attend your conference. So that might be the difference between me feeling comfortable to register for the event and me saying, this doesn't really seem like a great experience for me. So definitely worth the time and really important. It's something that we have to do, not just something that's nice to have.
Absolutely.
Well, great. Thank you so much, Meegan. I learned so much from you today, and I highly recommend you all check out the AbleVu website. Meegan actually offers meet and greets. So if you want to meet with her and learn a little bit more about how she might be able to help with your event or your city, anything that you would like a little bit of help with, she can do that. So I would definitely recommend checking her out on LinkedIn. She does a lot of really great posting, and really appreciate you helping me out today, Meegan.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.